been going on lately, you kind of get why they're worried. Have you seen Justin in public recently?
Justin Bieber always shows up to Hailey's events completely underdressed compared to her, looking like he just rolled out of bed, and even more importantly, why she doesn't seem to care.
Everybody's talking about Justin because they're talking about Justin and Hailey. That's not what we want to get into. I don't care about their marriage. I don't care about whatever culty things may be happening there. What I care about is this is a kid who we have evidence of because of his whatever documentary he put out with his first world tour, that he was literally working himself while sick, doing multiple shows, like hesitant to put off any shows, but also doing more shows than most regular adult, like singers, songwriters, you know, like rappers, all of that. And it was crazy to watch. Like when you see how much work this guy did as a, 15, 16-year-old, it's insane.
You tell me, scale of 1 to 10. 7. Minus 3.
Was not a 4.
Justin needs rest. I mean, that's really our best friend at this point.
My voice sounded good a couple.
Hear how your voice sounds now? He's giving it everything he's got. But doing 86 shows.
Not only that people are starting to like gossip about him and his wife now, when it's like that's like the least important thing that you could possibly be talking about with him right now, in like the whole stupid Selena Gomez thing. Like, oh my God, stop talking about that.
They're over it. They're over it.
Yeah, but then also it's the fact that like when he will be going on his Instagram or what have you, and obviously not doing okay, all the comments are like, "Hi Justin, notice me Justin," and it's like, or like people making jokes about him, and it's like you're literally watching somebody have a mental breakdown the same way that Amanda Bynes had one in the past. And in the past, people also made fun of her the entire time. She was like a meme that people used to make fun of on Twitter, and it made me really mad when they did that back then, and it still makes me mad seeing this sort of thing now. And so we wanted to at least try to talk about it from a perspective of kids in general want to like please adults. And especially when you're a kid that's in the industry, you're like living your dream, you want to make the adults around you happy because you want to be successful and you want to keep doing it. And there are a lot of like, looking back at Justin Bieber, the fact that his mom was posting videos of him singing on YouTube is the most gigantic red flag of all time. That she was purposely putting him out there when he was like, you know, his first record came out when he was 15. And so he was even younger than that when she was putting him on the internet and was getting all this huge amount of attention. This is like your child is in middle school and you're putting him out on the internet on purpose. Like she had to be the one doing that because YouTube was not, that was around the time that like some of like the first big creators started getting huge, but that was before. I don't even think you could be like monetized on YouTube back then.
Is not just actually, Justin is not just healthy like I prayed, but like I said, he's really talented. He's been putting up videos on YouTube, and he is now the #1 most subscribed to musician in Canada on YouTube.
On YouTube.
And number 20th in the world musician in Canada.
And
in general about Hollywood stuff, because even though we love like the Percy Jackson set, like when I watched the documentary, the way that they described why they loved Walker was that he didn't complain and that he worked really hard and he was willing to do whatever they asked. And I was like, that could be a problem. Like that could be a big problem one day. And I was just like, I'm glad that you all love this child, but I'm also kind of concerned about how the way that you say that you love him is that he said he did whatever you said and like didn't stop, or like, you know, the one thing that like Adam Copeland said in there somewhere was in one of the interviews on that documentary was that he said like, he didn't complain or anything when I was teaching him how to do like the fight scene. And I was like, if he would have like not wanted to take a break or something, that wouldn't be complaining, because he's a child. That's not complaining, but like that's the way that they kind of like present it as like, oh, Walker didn't complain. He just did whatever people said. And that's why the crew and everybody loved him, because he didn't show feelings. And I was just like, okay, like it sounds fine now when he's a child, but I'm like, how do you tell the difference then as you get older though? From an environment like this set that I think is run by people that know that children are children and want them to be able to balance that, versus like an abusive set who expects them to do that stuff and doesn't let them do that stuff and doesn't let them take breaks and treats them badly. How can they tell the difference between like how to act on set, or what is good and what is bad? Like how do they figure out that line, like with Justin Bieber stuff of him just like asking if he could eat McDonald's and his voice coach not letting him.
The doctor said you're not supposed to have. Those are fried.
Yeah, but he said, no one's perfect. And he said if you do it, you're a kid and you can do it.
I tell you what, I'm only trying to help you here. Is this what you want to do? You're still in the game? Are you ready to Canada and then go home to Canada? No, you're still in the game then, right?
And he wasn't allowed to do that when he was 15. And so it's that kind of a thing of like, how do you teach those kids how to stand up for themselves when they realize that they're in a bad situation? How are they ever going to figure out that they're even in a bad situation if they're basically taught from the time that they were kids on set to just do whatever the director and the producers want, and that's the way to make them happy?
Why'd you quit?
Oh, I was tired. I remember talking to my father, and I said, I'm getting tired. Like, I think I need a break. And he goes, yeah, I'll look into it. And the next thing I know, was the next thing. I was like, oh, I'm stuck. I felt trapped. So now it started feeling like a job and a chore, whereas before it was fun and I felt natural. When I turned 14, my dad and my mom were kind of split out. And I said, great, I quit. Because now he's out of the picture. I'm like, great, I quit. Oh, I haven't spoken to him in 30-something years. Oh, he deserves it too. You know, he's a man who had 7 kids, and now he has 4 grandkids. Yeah. And none of them want anything to do with him.
Happy. I wanted to look into some of like the rules, laws, whatever, when it comes to kids, and especially comes to like their money, because that's like a thing that happens every single time, it seems, with kids.
It's a lot of hard work. I know it all sounds super fun, and it is super fun, but you kind of have to fall in love with the process. You can't just love the glamorous parts.
I wanted to talk about, both of us wanted to talk about this especially, is because one thing that people tend to say about Hollywood or like kid actors compared to like ones in on like YouTube that have like no protections is that like, oh, child actors have like rules and regulations and laws about how much they can be on set. And I'm like, those suck though. They still are nowhere near good enough, and I need people to like actually understand that the idea that these are better and that there isn't like really anyone talking about making these sort of things better for children actors on set is like upsetting, because of how many documentaries have come out in the last couple of years about how there still is a lot of exploitation and overworking and taking advantage of kids and their money and all this kind of stuff that happens. But because from 15 days old to 2 years old, they can work for 8 hours. 3 to 5 years old, 8 hours. 6 to 11. Imagine a 7-year-old being on set for 8 hours and having to work. A kindergartner being on set for 8 hours and like contractually and supposed to be working. And the longest amount of time is 12 to 16 years old. 10 hours is the longest they can work. They can also work 2 hours overtime, which like, because this is kind of funny. My source for like at least the Percy Jackson stuff is Walker. He is the one that talks about this stuff in interviews. None of at least from what I've seen so far, the other kids don't talk specifics. I think he just likes to talk about it because he loves doing it. And so he's just like, da da da. And I'm like listening to all this because I find this stuff interesting about production stuff anyway. But I'm pretty sure that when they do Percy Jackson, they're on set for 12 hours.
Set. I wake up at like 7:30. Me and my dad or mom, we drive over to set, and I get there around 8:30. I would get into my wardrobe, my clothes, and my sides would be in my trailer. So I go over my sides, see what I'm doing that day, and then I go into, I think, hair first. I'll get my hair done. If it was a day where I was gonna be wet all day, they would put this like slime in my hair to make it appear wet for the whole day, which felt really weird, especially when they like wash it out. And normally they just make me put like 3 times more tan because I reflect light on the volume stage, 9:30. And then I go to school for like 30 minutes until they set up the shot. And we just go back and forth, shooting, school. And then at the end of the day, I head to my trailer, like wash all my makeup off, take my clothes off, put new clothes on. I don't just take them off. Yeah, and then I head home and go to bed.
They can work for 60 minutes before they have to have a break. And their minimum break is 10 minutes. And so for other kids, it's younger, it's a little bit shorter, like 45 minutes if you're 6 to 11.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years old, it's 30 minutes. 15 days to 2 years old, they can work for 15 minutes at a time. And then they have to have like a 20-minute break. But I guess the overall thing is like to actually think this through. Like imagine like these kids are on set, they're filming scenes for an entire hour. Like, I say this as someone who's like creative and like loved doing I did stage crew of theater when I was a kid, which is part of why I like learning about productions. I was that person that when DVDs would come out would watch all of like the behind the scenes stuff and loved watching. Like I immediately, as soon as I stopped watching the 8th episode of Percy Jackson, immediately watched their behind the scenes documentary because I find learning things like that of how things work and all that kind of stuff really interesting. Yeah. And so 60 minutes is actually a really long time to be performing without really like a break. Like, yeah, obviously they have to cut sometimes and like get the scene like ready to go again, but still like 60 minutes having to like focus is a long time because they have, at least with the Percy Jackson cast, there have been videos of them on set and you can see them trying to like focus to like stay in character, or at least I know Walker does that because there are videos of him doing that. There's some videos of them before they started filming that scene, and Leah and Daniel or Tyson are sitting there like talking and laughing and making jokes and stuff like that, and Walker's over by himself talking to like the director, and you can just like there's a couple videos like that of him doing stuff like that. It means for like an hour straight he's like trying to focus really hard on what he's doing and staying in that mind. And a lot of the scenes that Percy does, he's not having a happy fun time. So those are hard things to be like staying in your mind. Like he talks about when he did the chair scene.
A really like emotional scene, like the Tunnel of Love. I'll kind of just want to be myself more, and I don't know. You feel rude, like kind of not talking to anybody, but you kind of just have to do that to like stay in your zone. And like that whole day, I did so many push-ups just to like get like my mind off of it because it's such a hard thing to like stay in, like that like depressed zone that you keep like trying to pull yourself out of it and like make jokes and be happy, but then that like kind of pulls you out of the scene. So the whole time I just kind of tried to stay depressed. If that makes any sense.
No, totally. You have to be in it.
Yeah.
And by the way, like, could be rude, but like you being in it makes the whole day go easier and better for everybody. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Like it's a win for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's like imagine being in the mental zone of knowing that you're filming a scene whenever you start filming of you being suffocated to death.
This is a bad idea. Stand up. I'm okay.
Having to like stay in that like place for at least a day or two when you're showing up on set every day. And so working for an hour and only having a 10-minute break is not that long. No. It's not long enough for them to really like get away from the scene enough to like relax again and feel like refreshed and then like come back and be ready to like go back in again. And then the other thing with tutoring in school is that for the ages of 6 to 11, you have to have 3 hours per day of like a tutor on set. And that is true for ages of like 12 to 16 or to 18. One thing that I know from Walker saying this is that they have to be taken away from filming for 20 minutes before it like counts as time that they've been doing school. And so and they have to get it up to 3 hours a day. Like they have to do 3 hours of school a day, but it's only in like small little increments. But I said this to you, it's like the idea of like, it's not like they're actually at school. They're like on set in the middle of everything. When you're at like school, you are at school. The only reason why you're there is to go to class. Yeah. And so being able to go to class all day and you have to focus on what you're doing and like do your homework and do all this stuff is a lot easier. Being on like a set in the middle of all of this stuff, knowing that like the director can come get you at any time to pull you back into doing your job, because also your job includes like memorizing lines. They're filming one episode, they have to have like the lines memorized for that episode, but they're also at some point getting the script for the next episode, and they have to start memorizing those lines for the next episode as well. And the kids that have the most lines are the youngest ones. And so they have to like somehow balance that and also do school and also just like be a child. That's just like a lot. That's a lot. And so what I'm saying is that 3 hours a day on set when you only are going like for 20 minutes at a time, it would be very hard to focus in the middle of all of that stuff, especially knowing that you never know when they're going to come to like pull you back out. And so they would be more focused on like learning their lines. And like, I don't know how you could be like working on like a scene like that and then suddenly stop after like an hour and be like, okay, you have to go do school for 20 minutes. And like your mind is still on that thing you were just doing. Yeah. Especially because you're like passionate about what you're doing. And so you can't just like leave it. And so that would be really hard to focus on school and be able to really do anything like that on set. And that is like the only time that they get like a break.
Like, I'm gonna guess that Walker and Leah are not in the same grade level learning the same material. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially like virtual learning. And yeah. I am one of the many parents who had to watch my kids suffer through virtual learning. William hated it. Like, I wasn't one of the kids posting pictures of him crying at his desk, but like there were times where he was that frustrated of, I can't concentrate. Nobody on screen is doing what they're supposed to do, and I'm looking over here and looking over here. Like, I can't stop playing with the desk. This is not my environment where I do this. And so, like, literally right now, he's writing an argumentative essay for his language arts class, and he's writing it against, like, online learning, because that's how much this kid has been affected by just the concept of, like, being interrupted while you're working, like, not being in a good environment to learn.
COVID happened when they were like 11. Yeah. Like when Walker started trying to act was right when COVID happened. Mm-hmm. And so like COVID happened, they couldn't go to school anyway, and then he just started acting. And so ever since he was like 11 or 12, hasn't been in like normal school for longer than like probably 6 months at a time. Yeah. And that's just like a very disruptive thing. Like the thing, the post that I made that I wanted to say again is just like the stuff with this kind of stuff of why it would be very difficult for child actors to transition is like, imagine you're on set where everyone treats you like you're an adult, like you have responsibilities, you have to show up on time every day, you have to learn your lines every day. If you don't learn your lines and you mess up a scene, all these people are all watching you not do it the right way, and it's up to you to figure out how to do it. They can't move on without you figuring out how. That's very like adult sort of like pressure to feel that usually you don't feel until you're much older. Yeah. And they're figuring that all of that stuff out. They have a lot of responsibilities. They like had to figure out how to like feed themselves, take care of themselves, rest enough. Yeah, their parents are there, but it's still a much more like independent sort of atmosphere. than there would be otherwise. Like some of the laws and stuff in this that I didn't even talk about yet is that like parents can't be like right on set like that. There's like certain places where they can be so that there isn't like those sort of situations between like the parents and like the people on set like not getting along and stuff, to keep them more separate, to help like kids be able to like focus and things like that too. And so it's not like the parents are like right there with them all the time, and so they're still like kind of, you know, living like more independently. And then imagine living like that for 8 months like they just did for season 2, and then you go back to high school where you're not allowed to leave a classroom to go to the bathroom unless your teacher says it's okay.
Yeah.
And you are told you have to do busy work for homework. That doesn't even matter. Like I didn't do that stuff when I was in high school because I was like, this doesn't matter. And like they know definitively that it doesn't matter because they only do 3 hours of school a day and they can still do fine with like actual normal school. So they obviously don't need to be there for 8 hours a day. They know for a fact you don't, but when they come home, they have to be there that long anyway. And they're not allowed to do anything at all. And it's like, which one is real? Like, am I able to be like a small adult where I can take care of myself? Or am I such a little child that I can't even go to the bathroom by myself? Like, which one? That is just such like a polar opposite thing. Like, no wonder why their brains hurt when they're trying to figure that stuff out. I don't know how they even figure that stuff out. Like, kids, we do a lot when we have to try to like survive, but it's still like a wild that kind of stuff is like happening with them. One thing I wanted to point out was this is something that I said was like a good thing for the Percy Jackson like production that they did. Now I know they did this because they legally have to, not because they chose to, which is that for like auditions, like wardrobe fittings, like when they have to take pictures for like to promote like the new season, when they have to do like press and stuff like that, they have to do them on days when they like don't work. There's literally like a law that says that you have to do it either on the weekends or during their school breaks so that they don't miss school. And I'm like, I thought they were just being nice of why they didn't do like casting and things like that and outside of like Walker's like spring break last year. But it's like, no, because they legally have to.
Yeah.
Like that's why they did it. And I'm not saying any of this to be like, this show sucks, but I am just saying the fact of like, I thought they did that because they were just being nice, but in fact it's actually a law that they have to do. And it's probably why when it comes to like season 3, they're probably not going to do any real casting until the summertime when they're out of school again. Because the summertime they can do it, and they don't really have very long amount of days off anymore for the rest of the school year until it's over.
And besides, if they're going to film on location for Titan's Curse, we need it to be winter. So we want them to be preparing this summer and not working.
Yeah, and the other thing is like that they have to have a certain amount of time off. Like they have to have like 12 hours off between like when they leave and then they come back the next morning. So with Percy stuff, it was like they had to be there at like 7:30 in the morning, something like that, and they would leave by like 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
And basically like go home, like probably sleep, and then like come back and do it all like the next day. And so the other thing that is like the most important thing I think to talk about when it comes to this stuff is like the Coogan accounts and their money, because this stuff makes me so mad. And this is like what made us like want to talk about it really, was because of like Justin Bieber's mom made a lot of money off of him, and he obviously paid a lot for that. There's endless stories of child entertainers of some sort like losing a lot of money or not having any money. Like a lot of like the Piper Raquel documentary, when we were talking about those kids, I was like, how are those kids supposed to get any money when their parents probably run all the money they get from like their YouTube channels and things like that? They would have to start over from zero, and they could do that because they have a big enough following, but it would still be really hard, especially as a kid, if your parent has been taking care of that stuff your whole life. You don't know any of that stuff. And when you're a teenager, you can't even get like a checking account without your parent like signing with you to like say that it's okay for you to get one. And so like how do you do that without emancipating yourself first? And that's a whole long process. It's all very complicated because children don't have any rights. Have you noticed this yet? Like they don't have any rights. They're like these laws say that it is perfectly legal for a 2-year-old child to work for 8 hours a day on a movie set.
Mm-hmm.
And they and people are like, yeah, movie sets are safer now for kids. I'm like, what? Oh my God. And so the stuff with like the money that makes me like so mad is this is something that I've always thought. And so if you don't know what Coogan accounts are, they're these things that was made based by a child actor many years ago, being like financially destroyed by their parents stealing all of their money and abusing them horribly. And so they named the accounts after them. And so what they basically are meant to be is that a kid, when they're doing like acting, they get a certain amount of money for the work that they're doing. And so this is an account where legally they have to put a certain amount into that account that isn't a trust that they can then access when they're 18 and they can use whoever they want. The Coogan accounts are something that people bring up a lot when they talk about family channels and like YouTube, because there aren't accounts like that. But can I just say, these accounts are horrible also, because they are set up in the way that for a Coogan account, 15% of the money is saved for the child when they turn 18 and put it in accounts. So 85% of the money from those accounts are just given to their parents, and they can legally do whatever they want with it. And this is not anything to say that like any of the kids on this set or any other set are like being harmed by their parents or anything like that. It is just, this is like legally what is allowed. Like this is perfectly legal. There is nothing that anyone can do to like stop this. So you looked up like on Google like what Google thinks Walker Scobell makes every episode of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Google thinks that he made $100,000 an episode, which probably is somewhat accurate, considering like how much money this show makes. And so if they do 8 episodes in season 1, for instance, that's $800,000 that he made when he was 13 in one season of work. But also, because he is 13 when he made this money, legally he is allowed to get $250,000 out of all of that work, and his parents get like the rest, like $650,000.
Yeah.
And so like I know that people, especially like I've been very poor my whole life, $250,000 is like wild to think about, but like I need everyone to like think about this. Just Walker had 10 days off for the entire 10 months that they were filming season 1. On average, 1 day off a month. Like, I just told you how much they were on set. At least 10 hours a day for 10 months, 5 days a week for 10 months, every single day. And he was learning lines, memorizing lines, learning fight choreography, doing stunts, doing all of these things. He was in every single scene, basically, of the entire show. He never got a break. When he did get a break, he would go in the writer's room and read scripts that weren't finished yet, and he would go and watch scenes that he wasn't in. When there were a couple of them, he would go and watch them. He watched Arian film a scene without him. He went and watched, like, little baby Percy film a scene without him. A lot of times, the, like, star of a production, when they really enjoy what they're doing, do stuff like that. Because they feel responsible for, like, the whole thing. I get it. And it's honestly a good quality in general to have. And his parents get 85% of the money he made during that time. His parents didn't do that. Yeah. His parents, like, took turns being on set, sure, but they watched him work. He was the one actually working. He was the one actually doing all of this stuff. They weren't. And this is nothing against them at all. It's just like, this is how the system is set up, that they get the majority of the money because they're his parents, but he doesn't get that. it should be the other way around.
He
should have 85% of the money saved for him. He worked his ass off doing that. He is the star of this production. He is the face of Percy Jackson, the Olympians. His face is everywhere. He has people fixated on everything he does on social media. They are obsessing not only about him, about his family, about anyone who's ever met him before. He has been put in this position. He is out there all over the place. They made 3 billion minutes watched of that show last year. He can make, maybe his parents will be, ethical, and they will actually give him that money when he is 18, but there is no guarantee that he will. The only amount that he is guaranteed is 15% of what he made, and they made way more than that off of the work that he did. And they will continue making way more off of the work that he did. And I know that he likely will make money from like residuals and things like that from people watching and things like that isn't included in that. But it's just a general idea that when a child actor is working, they get paid every week. And so every week when he was doing all of that work where he was working, if he was working 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, he was working 50 hours. He was working more than me. And he was 13 doing like really physical, hard, like mentally like challenging sort of work. Because none of the scenes on Percy are exactly easy. They're all emotionally challenging to try to depict on screen. And so he's doing that stuff for 50 hours a week, every week. And the money that is being put in his account, 85% of it is going to his parents and not him. And it's just that there is something very wrong with that. And it's not just him. Like, all the other kids on set were like that, too, obviously. They likely made around the same amount of money that he did. But it's just the general idea with child entertainers and children in general is that people act like children are not human. And, like, just the idea that a child could work 50-hour work weeks and that they are only allowed to have 15% of that money saved for them in the future, no adult would ever put up with that. Like, if you showed up at work and said, you only get 15% of your paycheck and I get to keep the other 85% because I'm here when you're working and I gave you a job and so that's how this is going to work and there's nothing that you can do about it, you would never take that job. But when it's children that are conditioned to want to, like, make adults happy, that is like the best that they can get. And if they would say too much about not liking that, then are people going to want to work with them? Are they going to see them as they're complaining now?
They're too difficult.
If they're like, get up, like, if I have days when, like, days like today where I'm upset about something else, because life just happens. You get, some things just happen, especially when you're working a lot, when, like, if I sometimes have, like, I had a job interview a couple weeks ago for another position at my work. The night before I did that, I, like, couldn't sleep for a while because I was nervous about doing it, because I was having to, like, present something in front of a bunch of people. Like, imagine knowing that you're going to do, like, a huge scene that millions of people around the world have been wanting to see in Percy Jackson, something done well. You know that millions of people are wanting you to deliver this scene, and you're going to have to do it tomorrow. Like, imagine trying to sleep knowing that. Like, no wonder why Walker looked panicked when he was thinking about Titan's Curse, because he was like, no one's ever done Titan's Curse, and now I have to be the one to do it. I have to be the one to like deliver this book that everybody loves so much. What? And it's just like that sort of pressure. Like, of course they're not going to sleep that well. They're sometimes going to have days where they're just tired or whatever. Are they allowed to, like, just be human when they're on set and, like, get upset or, like, snap at people because they're tired or whatever, without people being like, oh, you're being a brat?
No, they're not. Like, we know the realistic answer is no, even though we don't want it to be, because, like, look at the thing we talked about with Ryan Reynolds, where there's that clip of him talking about, like, oh, my daughter didn't want to say this line, so we started saying, we're going to replace you.
Hey, when I want your opinion, I'll take Wolverine's dick out of your mouth.
That's guiltily, that is my daughter, Inez.
I'm so sorry we have to admit that.
And I am Father of the Year over here for allowing her to say such language, which, to her credit, she really didn't want to say. and then came back later and said, I want to say it now, when I started looking at other people to play.
Yeah, but Ryan,
like that's gonna get into a little kid's head. Like,
yeah,
I'm replaceable. If I don't do well enough, if I complain too much, they're going to replace me.
Yeah, and overall, I think the thing of what I wanted to try to say with this whole thing and YouTube, but this is specifically what I was thinking about, is that, like, I feel like for kids that are doing this sort of stuff, like the Justin Bieber thing, anyone that you ever see, is that they are having a dream come true, right? This is something that they've wanted their entire lives. They've worked a lot to make it happen. It doesn't matter that they're kids. They've worked a lot to make it happen. Don't be that person. And, like, disregard how much they work just because they're younger than you. And so it's like they work really hard to do this. They're finally getting, like, the dream that they've wanted to do, that they've worked really hard for to get. And so I feel like it would be very hard to talk about the parts of it that is difficult. And, like, because it's like there are a lot of parts of this stuff that are hard, that are challenging, that are, like, difficult to deal with. And the thing I think about is, like, can they talk about that with anybody? Like, if they're having, like, a hard time, like, balancing school and, like, lines and life and are just stressed out or dealing with whatever, can they go to anybody and say, like, this is really hard? Like, it's really hard that people are, like, tagging me in all these things on social media and spreading all these rumors about me, and I can't say anything because that will make it worse. Or, like, it's hard that I am showing up to set today when I don't feel good or when I'm tired, and I have to do this scene that's going to be really hard for me to do, and I don't know how to do it. Like, to talk about Walker again, there was an interview he did at the Emmys where he quite literally said, like, they asked him what was the difference between filming season 1 and season 2. And he said when he filmed season 1, he was pretending that he was confident because he was actually terrified. Like, those were his verbatim words. He was terrified and did not feel confident in what he was doing at all, and basically just acted like he knew what he was doing until he actually felt like he knew what he was doing. And he was saying season 2 wasn't like that. I actually went into it feeling, like, confident that I could handle it. And I was just like, yeah, it's that kind of stuff that I talk about of, like, is he ever allowed to be, like, having all of this pressure on me and having to be the one to be in charge and be, like, the leader of everybody on this set every day when I am a kid and I have done hardly anything in Hollywood and I'm somehow the one that everybody goes to. Like, the leader can't get upset. The leader, like, can't show that they're having a hard time with stuff, because then it's like everyone else looks at you and they don't know what to do because you're the one that's, like, making everybody keep going. You're the one keeping everybody in a good mood and, like, making everything move forward.
Yeah, I just keep thinking it, like, that sounds literally just like Percy. Like, yeah, I mean, it's very fitting that he's playing this character, but
yes,
I have all the pressure on me, and everybody's looking at me, and I'm nervous and don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's, I think it's so funny how people are like, oh, Walker is like Percy. When I heard that, I was like, uh-oh. Like, I don't know what to think about that.
No.
Because I'm like Percy. What do you mean he's like Percy? I don't want him to be that much like Percy. But he did read, like, to, like, put this in perspective, he did read the first 5 books 6 times before he was ever even cast as Percy. I don't know. I feel like if, like, our whole thing is, like, anything, it's just, even when we talk about things that are, like, trending, we never talk about it for the reason anyone else.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I don't want to get into Justin and Haley's relationship.
It does not matter. That is a child that was horribly, like, just abused for many years. And yeah, he is kind of an asshole, but he's like that because Hollywood just took him and spit him back out.
Exactly.
And the thing that I don't care about the absolute most is the stupid stuff with, like, if anything, honestly, as a traumatized person, very traumatized person from my childhood, him not being able to let go of Selena Gomez makes a lot of sense, because there are people in your past that you are very attached to when you're really traumatized as a kid, because you, like, remember happy things with them, and you don't want to, like, let go of that. Like, I was friends with people that were not good friends of mine for, like, 15 years, longer than I should have been, because they made me happy when I was in high school, and nothing made me happy when I was in high school. Like, Justin Bieber not being able to let go of Selena Gomez makes a lot of sense because she was probably one of the only things in the years that they knew each other that actually made him happy. And it's not because he's like secretly still in love with her, or like he doesn't care about Hailey, or Hailey and Selena had this whole battle going on. He's a traumatized person. That is why he acts that way. That is what we do. And it's really frustrating to see somebody falling apart and people still can't look at them like you would anybody else because they're just, what, like a celebrity? Who cares? They're a person.
Yeah.
Like, can we just look at these people like a person when it's happening so that we don't have to do these documentaries 10 years after it all happened?
It makes me think of Britney because, like, that's kind of, you know, I was the right age when Britney had her meltdown in, what was it, like 2006, 2007? I was 16 or 17. So I was that age group where it was like, oh, we're watching this whole thing go down, and we want the next tabloid. We want the next story about what Britney's doing and what's happening with her marriage and her divorce and her kids. I don't want that this time around with Justin because it's the same shit. It's the same shit. He's crashing out because Hollywood has treated him terribly.